Welcome back to Private Club Radio. I'm your host, Denny Corby, and this week we have former president of Ocean Reef Club, Mr. Michael Leemhuis. We discuss effective leadership, what you need to do to obtain and attract top talent, as well as the number one thing most clubs do not have, and it's not what you think. Welcome to Private Club Radio. Welcome back to Private Club Radio, everyone. This is Denny Corby, your new host. Thank you so much for tuning back in. Really appreciate it. If you've made it through the first episode with me, thank you so much for your patience. I realize it was not my best work, but each one will get better as we go on, I promise. Like I said, we have an amazing episode this week. We have Michael Leemhuis. We discuss plenty of different topics from leadership to attracting top tier talents, as well as the one thing most clubs do not have, and you probably don't either, and it's not what you think. Along with those, we discuss everything from education to his Ironman triathlons, communication, different club experiences. This really is a fun interview. I had a blast talking to him. Well, let's get started. Everyone, welcome Mr. Michael Leemhuis. So, I've been digging a lot. I was doing a lot of research on you. I was watching videos. I was reading articles. You came a long way. What was more of your childhood and younger jobs like? How'd you kind of get into the club world a little bit? I know you're a PGA, all the, you have all the credentials. But what was your high school like? I always like to see because, your one talk, you talk about it, success, and success is different for every single person. And my kind of goal with these talks is, success leaves clues or success leaves crumbs. So to me, it's, hey, can anybody pick up some of the crumbs from these conversations? So looking back for highly, successful performers and really good performers, usually their childhood or their, somewhere early on, it was kind of created in base and had a platform. What was your high school years and your first jobs like?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I kind of uneventful. I mean, I tell people all the time, I really didn't have a very eventful, kind of early part of my childhood and growing up. I mean, nothing special in South Africa. I was lucky enough to go to because of where my parents' home was, I was lucky enough to go to a really good high school. And the system in South Africa is they're private schools and then they're government schools and a couple of really good government schools. And I happen to fall into the area that I was able to go to this good government school. But really a mediocre student, mediocre athlete, but enjoyed my high school and still stay in touch with them today, and actually very involved in helping the high school still today with bursaries and stuff like that for underprivileged kids that go to that school. So that's a whole different story, but really feel very attached to the place I went to and really feel good about that. Was lucky enough to get into a really good university, probably one of the better universities, if not the top two universities in South Africa. And really my goal was to become a school teacher. So I had no aspirations of doing anything along the lines of what I did. So graduated as a school teacher, went in and actually taught at a school, a very good all-boys school, again, government school, and enjoyed my 3 years there, but then very, very soon realized that was just not for me. I then was accepted to do a graduate degree at UCLA. So I bought a one-way ticket through London to UCLA and went there, wasn't able to finish, didn't understand the American system, didn't understand out-of-state tuition. I mean, the whole thing was overwhelming. And after a year, I was back in South Africa and then working in the hospitality industry. So working for a company that owned about 31 hotel franchises and casinos and everything. And it really was there that I kind of realized I really enjoy hospitality. And that's when I started really pursuing seriously my golf career. And knew I'd never play on the tour, but knew that if I did the right things, I could do enough to get into golf per se. And that's really what I did. Once I got into golf, I ended up I ended up doing a lot of work with Gary Player, ended up doing a lot of work with the Player family, kind of deviated, managed an 80,000 seat rugby stadium for a while. And then, had my first child and immigrated to America with my wife. I'd married an American woman and we immigrated to the US. And that's where I went back to grad school, East Carolina University. And while I was there, I aggressively pursued my golf side of the business, and met a number of really good golf professionals, met a number of really good club managers, and it was a gentleman called at a club called Benvenue Country Club, a guy called Jack B. Quick, crazy guy, a really nice
Jack B. Quick.
Jack B. Quick was. And I'll never forget it because he was the one who kind of introduced me to CMAA. He was the one who introduced me to, being a club manager. He said, Mike, the beauty about being a club manager is you can do as much golf as you want, but then you can get to kind of stick your nose into food and beverage. You can stick your nose into agronomy. You can be involved in a whole bunch of different things. And really, if it hadn't been for Jack, I probably would have stayed the golf route, but ended up making the change. And as they say, the rest is history. I just, was able to, take that and then, do some of the things I've done, work for the PGA Tour, work for high-end resorts, and then my time at Congressional and then my time at Ocean Reef. So really a really nice introduction by Jack. And he's still around, and Jack and I still talk every now and again. So really a good guy. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you going to conference in a few weeks?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm going to drive up. I live down in Florida, so it's going to be an easy drive for me. So
where? Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're still down on the east coast of Florida, right?
Yeah, down in Palm Beach area, Juno Beach area. I was trying to think. I just got back from the PGA show, and I think it was my 30th PGA show. And I know I haven't done 30 CMA conferences, but it's up there, probably 25 conferences. So
wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, I'm an old guy. I've been around.
I'm going to be at conference too. I'm going to be at Michael Gutenplan, the members only show.
Yeah.
I'm going to be with him at his booth. So you have to make sure you come by and say hi. So I was listening to one article, and this is what I was hoping you were maybe gonna bring up, but didn't. This is what I see a little bit from with high performers is the one thing I listened to you were doing a talk and talking about. I think it was the first place that you were doing golf with, one of the clubs, and you were doing everything from cleaning to you were doing so many jobs. How do you think that shaped and focused things? And I know this interview is about you, but my family owns a few businesses, and one of them is a facility cleaning company, and the other is a facility supply company. So ever since I was 16, I've stripped and waxed floors, cleaned bathrooms. Was in the warehouse, loading trucks, did all that stuff. And, I think it's kind of, I don't want to say humbled me, but, it's one of those it's made it easier for me to communicate and talk with everybody from a top level to the person who's cleaning the grout. You know what I mean? It just allows that interaction. How long did you do that for? Tell me a little bit more about that experience, because that's a learning curve.
Well, I think it's really important, and I think it stems back to the fact that I think one of the things I talk about in my success presentations is, you need to understand what the arrows are in your quiver. What are the things that you bring to the table that other people don't? How do you separate yourself from others, right? So I use that example as one of my arrows. So one of my arrows is I think I've done everything in the golf business. Not necessarily at the time realizing I was putting an arrow in my quiver, but it was one of those things that I was just kind of forced into doing, right? I was forced into by circumstances at that stage when it was right at the time I was finishing my graduate degree. The reason I went back and did my graduate degree was because in the United States, nobody really understood what my background was. They didn't understand my university degree, etc. So I go back to school, and then I get a job as an assistant golf professional at a municipal golf course, a public golf course. And suddenly I'm doing everything. I'm striping range balls. I'm picking up the range. I'm washing the balls. I'm bringing them back in. I'm giving lessons. I'm folding. I'm doing everything. Washing golf cars. I think, understanding the business you're in from the ground up is really key. And I'll give you an example. I started at a five-star resort in the mid-90s in South Africa. And guys were telling me when I got there that it takes 15 to 20 minutes to clean a golf cart. Now, having cleaned a golf cart front to back, had it criticized by my head golf professional, I know that you can clean a golf cart and do it really well in about 5 to 7 minutes, really well. So I'm standing in a suit, and this guy's telling me it can't be done in 5 to 7 minutes, and that it needs to take 15 to 20 minutes. So I took off my jacket, undid my tie, and I physically showed the five guys that were standing there how you can clean a cart perfectly in 5 to 7 minutes. So it does two things. One, it helps people understand the value of time and how quickly or how well and how quickly something can be done. But at the same time, it shows your willingness to basically get in, roll up your sleeves, get something done. And it also shows that you know how to do what they're doing. Now, you shouldn't be doing everybody else's job, but just like anything, if you get busy in the kitchen, you lend a hand. If you get busy in the front of house and plates need to be cleared, I mean, every general manager I know worth his salt is going to go in there and help roll up his sleeves and get that done. So that humility to be able to know when to step in, know when to help, know when to be a part of the team in a working environment, I think is critical. And I think those are the things that help build your successes. I'm a big believer of these arrows in your quiver: a degree, a master's degree, a PGA certification, a CMA certification. These are all things that you work towards and you then put into this quiver that when it's time to present this to the world or to whoever's potentially want to employ you, it's basically your quiver against somebody else's, with all things being equal, with your personality being similar personalities, your your ability to do the job being equal. What makes you different and in some ways exciting, right? I one of my quivers is, during my earlier part of my career, I did Ironman triathlons. What a great opening conversation to have with somebody. Somebody says, what are your hobbies? Well, when I was in my mid 30s to 40s, I did 6 Ironman triathlons. For me, that was a great way of exercising, staying in shape. It was something that gave me peace of mind. But when I say that to somebody, it's like, wow, that's unbelievable. Let's talk about it. So arrows in your quiver don't have to be qualifications. It could be experiences. It could be experiences that you have that make you an interesting person to talk to or people want to talk to. So anyway, I hope that kind of answers your question. But
no, that was amazing. So kind of going on to that, there's, I don't know if it's an age old question, but, is a leader born or built, raised? What do you think?
Well, I think, and I've done a lot of research in this, and I know, it's not born. I believe people rise to the occasion at the right time. If you look at Winston Churchill, is probably one of the greatest leaders. Winston Churchill failed more times than he ever succeeded. The point is that he was the right man at the right time in the right place to be able to be the great leader that he was and to really carry the victory in the Second World War. If it had been anybody else, who knows what the outcome might have been. So it's definitely not born. I think it's a series of experiences that give you the opportunity. And every time you put into a situation, you're learning and you never quite know where that's going to end up. So when you're working as an assistant golf professional in our industry, you really don't understand that at some stage during your career, you're going to be the CEO of or the president of Ocean Reef Club. You hope it might happen one day, but you don't know. So I really believe it's a learned experience. You have to learn how to communicate. Communication is at the essence of great leadership, right? So being able to stand up and speak to 300 people in a board in a member meeting at a club, you don't learn that overnight. I mean, you don't, you learn how to communicate, but through experience of doing this, a combination of experience and learning, you get to that. How do you do a presentation? How do you speak in front of, 20, 30, 100 people? How do you do that? It's a learned thing. Communication is the ability to be able to listen, speak, public speaking, written communication. Again, that's a very understated way of communicating, and not everybody writes, great writers. So I think it's learned. So I do believe leaders emerge at the right time, but they emerge at the right time because they've worked hard at getting the experience and learning the skills that allow for great leadership. And as you know, leadership runs the gambit of all different types of dictatorial leadership, all the way through to, those that engage. So it's a little bit different, and you need to figure out the style that fits yourself. And I don't think there's any one style that you can say you. Well, I think there's a style you can say you consistently have. But at any given time, I think in leadership, you're probably going through 3 or 4 different leadership types. You're not always 100% an engager or somebody who facilitates learning. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of dictatorial leadership in your arsenal as well. So definitely not a born trait in my mind.
How much, so beyond the CMAA, which I know is tremendous, they do so much education and things in that capacity. What other professional and self-development stuff do you kind of live by, if anything? Like, I don't know, do you follow any people, books, any of that stuff? Like, what's your jam?
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you look at my Audible, list, you think I'm crazy. I'm all over the place. I'm busy reading. I'm listening to Harry's book right now, so I'm trying to see if there are any nuggets out of there. I think for me the key is, again, going back to the arrows. What are the things that you're interested in? What are the things that'll separate you? So I often say to golf professionals, you are somebody that obviously members of the club are going to want to speak to. You're going to help them with their golf game. You're going to play with them. You're going to give them lessons, etc. And people who are passionate about golf love all of that. But, I would recommend for somebody like that, somebody who's coming up through the industry in golf, become a wine connoisseur. Become a wine expert. Become a sommelier. Take level 1 sommelier school. Go in and learn that so you can talk about wine. And I've given this advice to my kids, who are both great golfers, and one really has immersed himself in the wine business and really understands wine better than I do. So for somebody who's in that kind of golf sphere, learn something outside of your realm, and that's where I think wine would be a good one. On the converse side, a lot of our club managers come through the hospitality industry and know a fair amount about food and beverage. They know about wine, but know very little about golf. And they're not going to run out and suddenly start practicing and suddenly be a scratch golfer. It's not going to happen. The game's too difficult. It's just not going to happen. Plus, if you're spending that much time on the practice facility, your members are probably thinking, why are we paying this guy what we're paying if he's out there practicing his golf game? But to people in food and beverage, I say learn the rules of golf. One of the things that would separate you from others would be understand the rules of golf. It's one of the things that most talked about by club members when they're sitting around. This happened today. Hey, I saw Jack do this, et cetera, et cetera. I wonder what the rule on that is. If you have the answer, it's sort of the opposite to the wine sommelier, right? It's somebody that has a tremendous amount of knowledge in the history and the rules of golf. The other thing is finance. I mean, I think one of the things that we do better today through CMA, through the PGA, is teach our members about the finance. But it's something that even at school, we really never got taught. Yeah, I ask this question a lot. I mean, how many of you have ever been had a finance class in school? How many in high school ever taught you about doing taxes? The answer is none. And then if you go to college, in my 4 years of college, again, very different. I wasn't studying to do finance, but we never talked about finance, and yet so much revolves around that, right? So again, I think that's another area of interest that I think not only do I focus on, but I think others do. And then really, Danny, leadership, right? Leadership and success are the two passions of mine and there's so much written on leadership. I mean, literally, I've been studying this now for probably the last 15 years. There are literally every man and his dog now has written a book about leadership. And there's good in each one of them. There's nuggets that you could take away. The success one is a little bit more difficult because as you've heard me say, success is different for everybody. But the thing that drives me on success is, why is it that people who should be successful in life oftentimes aren't? And why is it that people who really shouldn't be successful in life because they've been dealt all the wrong cards are successful? That's the thing that's still the answer I'm looking for. I still don't have that. In 10 years of looking at this, I still don't have that answer. I can't put my finger on it. There's a lot of theories out there. I have a lot of my own theories about that, but that's the elusive thing for me, is trying to figure out why that happens. Why does a kid from the inner city, one parent, no money, no role model, goes on to be extremely successful and a multi-billionaire? Why is that? And somebody who has everything going from them, great family background, ends up, doing drugs and living on the streets. Why is that? That'll probably plague me for the rest of my life. I'm trying to figure that out and don't have an answer.
You find and retain really good talent? Like, how do you recognize good talent? You've obviously, dealt with a lot of different employees from high levels, low levels. How do you recruit, keep really good talent? Because it's a little bit harder these days. I think clubs, the ones I've been dealing with recently, I think clubs have a little bit, they pay a little better. So some of their staffing, but still it's like a major thing. What are your thoughts on all that?
It's definitely more difficult today than it was 5 years ago. There's no doubt about that. And again, in the last 5 years, I haven't been in a position, because I've been retired, so I haven't been in a position where I'm actively going out recruiting people. But I think recruiting in general, because one of the services I offer is recruiting, is an executive search. I think two things. One, you have to network, and in networking, you have to really use that network wherever possible to be able to really know what's out there. And you have to gain trust with the network that you have, that they are going to pass people on to you potentially when you need it, right? So I think that's really, really important. I think the other thing that I think is important is you should hire when you don't need somebody. So you're going to get opportunities coming by all the time where you have good people presented to you and you think to yourself, man, I'd really like to hire that person, but I don't have an opening for them. My theory has always been, and I've probably been criticized for it, my theory has always been, if I find a really good person, even if I don't have a spot for them, I'm going to make a spot for them, because I think down the road, things happen. People leave, this one changes, that goes to a different position. If you've got a really good person, that person you can put in there and that person will be successful. So I think most 99% of people are hiring when they need. And I think the really smart ones are hiring when they don't need, and putting those people in place, training them, getting them ready for the eventuality when that comes, when the opportunity comes. And really, the third one is succession planning. If you have a good succession plan in place, and very few clubs have that today. I talk to so many clubs, and honestly, it's the single biggest thing that they don't have, whether it's for the general manager, for the director of golf, for the assistant food and beverage. They just don't have it. And as you said rightly, today's market in the last 5 years is very different. So again, succession planning is difficult. And some of the things I just shared with you, it's not easy to do it. People are budget conscious. So, when you're putting in an extra body and it's a salary, people get that. But I think long term, it pays off to do that. But it is a challenge. And my colleagues in the industry today, I feel for it because they are facing some real challenges.
So going back to succession planning, because you said a lot of clubs don't do it, are there any easy steps? Like, is there a way to like start that process? I think it's one of those things that is very daunting also, to do something like that. Are there any easy steps? Like, how can a club who's like now maybe thinking, oh, hey, we probably should look at something, like, what are some steps to do?
So it's interesting because the perception is it's difficult. The reality is it can be easy, but it can also be very difficult. So I'm kind of speaking out both sides of my mouth. I think whenever you're hiring somebody, you have to ask yourself the question, can this person take over from the person that they're reporting to? So if you're going to if there's a culture within your club that everybody goes in thinking that, if I'm interviewing like I did for a number 2 at Ocean Reef, my thought process was, is this somebody that could take over from me if I got run over by a bus? And if the answer to that is no, then generally I'm going to say, then that's not the hire for me. Because I want somebody, whether it's a head golf professional reporting to a director of golf, can that head golf professional, if that director of golf tomorrow moves on, can that head golf professional take that person's spot? Now, a lot of it has to do with timing, right? So it might be, you hire somebody and you think that person could take over in 2 years' time. The director of golf leaves in 6 months. Well, then you got to go to the well, right? But if you're hiring with that thought in mind, I think that you're going a long way towards succession planning. And so I think it's a mindset for hiring. And again, I know how difficult it is to hire at the moment. I'm living that on the other side of the fence, trying to find good people for clubs. So I understand that. But if you can at least think that it's no different than for boards at clubs when your nominating committee goes out to look at potential board members for clubs. The question I would tell board members who would ask me, I would say to them, when you're looking at potential board members, do you see this person as the president of the club one day? Because he or she may get there. And if you can't see them speaking on behalf of the entire club, you're probably not doing the club or your committee justice in putting their name forward, because they get onto the board, and the next thing they're the president, and now you have somebody that may or may not represent you the way you want to be represented. So, yeah. So, anyway.
Before I forget, you did have a killer stash back in the day.
Yeah. I brought it back all of last year, up until my 40th wedding anniversary, because my wife loves a mustache. And we wanted to take a photograph, replicating a photograph when we first met, when I had a mustache. And I went through all of this. I grew that, and then things got in the way. We ended up not taking the photograph. So the new year.
Shaved it off. So. I'm looking at my notes down here, and it's, at least for me, it looks like everything did come full circle, because you wanted to be a teacher. And really, I think that's what a good leader is too, is like you help teach other people and help bring them up. I was just looking through my notes. I'm like, it's weird. It all just kind of does come full circle. And now you do teach, because you speak and you get up on stages and you work with people and stuff. So it's funny how it all comes full. I thought about that a lot, Danny. I think it's, I think one of the things, as you said, a good leader, you're always teaching. You're always instructing, you're always teaching, you're always sharing. It's part of mentoring, right? So I think you're absolutely right. And I think I enjoy the adult version, the adult student, more than the child student. Probably because I've done more of it now, at this stage. But
I do enjoy that because I think as for adults, they come in because they really want to listen to what you have to say. And the hope is, just like when you do your show, the hope is that there's something that you share with people that they take away that's going to change their life, right? There's one nugget, something you said that's going to trigger something that then allows them to change their life. I just come from the PGA show. I did 2 sessions on success, and had a lot of really good feedback from people. And my message is one thing: if you get one thing out of this, I'd be great. And the emails coming back after, because I think you know this, about 5% of people after talking are going to actually do something, right? And I keep harping on that in them because I want them to be the 5%, be one of the 5% that's going to do something. So every communication by email that I get or text messages, hey, Mike, I'm one of the 5%, which makes me happy that they're going to do something and execute. So, yeah, good.
Excuse me. From your experience, to wrap up, are there any easy, simple things that clubs should be doing, but they're not? Are there things that clubs are doing that they shouldn't? Just kind of like, 30,000 foot view, any just little things that, I don't want to say like annoyances or anything, but like, hey, it's, making sure the staff don't say, no problem, like stuff like that. Are there any like little of like your own nuggets that you like to see and encounter or don't like to see?
And this may not be what you're looking for, but let me share this with you. I think one of the things one of the trends that I see in the industry today, and one of the things that I think people in positions of power at clubs don't necessarily recognize. At a private club, we are so unique, right? Because it is a very unique private space. It's an extension of your home. But at the same time, if you go back 10 or 12 years, private clubs then are not private clubs today. What we were doing at Congressional 15 years ago is not what we did at Ocean Reef even 3 years ago. And by that, what I'm suggesting is that people still want that privacy, the intimacy, the family feeling, the kumbaya that you have with a private club, but they want all the experiences that they can get out in the real world. So just an example, in food and beverage alone, back, 15 years ago, it was steak and potatoes. It was a country club menu. It was, you'd get toasted sandwiches, you'd get fries. I mean, you get a hamburger. Those days are gone, right? The expectation, we were one of the first to do a steakhouse at Congressional Country Club. On the property, a Capital Grille style steakhouse at Congressional Country Club. It was unheard of before. Well, now a lot of clubs are doing that. But what is the next thing? What is the next thing that members are going to want? It's pickleball, it's paddle, it's the opportunities that come with a swim program. It's kids not just for golf and tennis. It's kids really engrossed in the club. Kid facilities that are kid friendly, enhancing that family experience. Before it was a bunch of old guys at a club, and now it's all about family. So I think the dynamics of the club have changed, and I think people still want the intimacy and the experience of a private club and that family feeling. But at the same time, they want the amenities that they can get elsewhere. I mean, look at some of the pools. Carmel Country Club, for example, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Their swimming pool, from what I've seen, looks like something you'd see on a cruise ship or something you'd see in a water park. It's overboard. It's designed for families and kids. So that's really, I think, Denny, what I'm seeing. That's the thing that I'd like to see more people embracing is find stuff that's out in the real world that you can make applicable to the club. Nobody thought a steakhouse would be applicable to a club. Everybody told me it would fail. Well, today there's a lot of people that do that, and we know it's successful. And we see it on cruise ships. We see it everywhere else, right? So find something out in the real world and then incorporate that into the club. So.
I think I found an answer to one of your questions, which is, what separates the people from who have nothing and become billionaires, the people who are, have billions and become, poor. It's the lack of fear. Yeah. When you're down so, this is not saying this, but the people who are down so low, they have nothing to lose. True. So they can only go up. People who have something, it's like, they fear the embarrassment. They fear looking dumb. They fear other stuff. That was a big, I don't want to say a big risk. I don't know it personally, but bringing that steakhouse to your club, people saying that you're going to fail. I mean, that's, you're going up some tough current there.
So we're going to wrap this up, but just going to show you one of the courses I did in my master's degree was sports psychology. So in sports psychology, it's now called performance enhancement. In performance enhancement, you deal with two people. You deal with those that do something because of fear, out of fear. I'm not going to fail because if I fail, then, this or this is going to happen. So there's the fear motivation. And then there's the other one where they do it because they truly believe, not only in themselves, but they believe that they can get to where they're going. And the one is categorized by fear. And I'm not gonna let my parents down. I'm not going to embarrass myself. I'm not going to do X. And then the other one is just a belief in themselves, oftentimes unwarranted belief in themselves. I'll send you a quote that I got from somebody that I think you probably will find interesting that might explain this a little bit better. But you're absolutely onto something. Fear motivation is, I have two kids, both are athletes. One was motivated on the fear side. The other one was motivated.
Well, there you have it. The one and only Mr. Michael Leemhuis. I hope you all got at least one little nugget out of there. He drops many, many, many clues of success, and we hope you got something from it. Please, if you've made it this far, we really appreciate if you can go like and follow on our social media channels. Instagram and LinkedIn is where we will be most active. So, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye.